At Dex's, Nina leaves Joss and Dex after opening a can of worms and bringing up seeing Dex leave Cyrus' room in scrubs. Joss asks Dex about the incident Nina mentioned. Dex admits he was told to go to the hospital by Sonny to kill Cyrus. Joss can't believe he'd agreed to something like that. Dex says he tried to talk Sonny out of it, so she assumes Nina was stirring up trouble, and of course, he'd never do that. Dex admits he was going to do it, but Sonny stopped him. Joss realizes that this was the night Adam was in the hospital, and she kept thinking she was lucky to have him there by her that night, but he was there to kill Cyrus. Joss asks if he is telling her that he would have killed Cyrus if Sonny didn't stop him. Dex admits he would have. Joss asks, "Who are you?" Dex says Sonny gave him an order and he didn't see a way out. He says this was a test and he's just glad Sonny changed his mind. Joss says he crossed a line she didn't think possible, and it's like she doesn't know him. She says this was different than being fired on by men with guns. This was a defenseless old man in a hospital, and she has issues with him being okay with killing someone. He says he's killed before. She knows he has, and she's put him on this pedestal in her head and never imagined he'd be okay with something like this. She cries this changes everything, and she can't do this anymore. Joss storms out on Dex. Dex breaks out a bottle of booze, pauses, but then makes a call to the police non-emergency number. At the gallery, Trina gets to work, and a certain artist makes her think about Paris. Ava worries being here isn't helping Trina right now. Trina doesn't know what will help her. Ava tells Trina she needs to give herself time to get through this. An upset Nina arrives hoping Ava has time to talk. Trina excuses herself, and Nina needs Ava to help her get to Sonny. Ava says right now her timing isn't good, as she won't look good if she tries to distract him away from Dante. Nina cries she wants to be there to support him, to help him through this. She thinks if Ava advocates for her, then he'll listen. Trina interrupts and says a late package is on its way. An emotional Ava says she needs to leave and asks if Trina can wait for it and then lock up after. Trina can and worries something is wrong. Ava says she'll be fine, and she and Nina take off. Later, Joss arrives in tears and Trina asks if it's Dante. Joss says it's not. Trina asks her to take a breath or she'll start crying with her. Joss explains she thought nothing could change how she feels about Dex, but she's been wrong. What he's okay with, she's not, and what he can live with, she can't and won't. Trina embraces her friend. At the Invader, Diane says the state legal board didn't come after Alexis until the medical board went to them about Mio's case. Alexis asks what this has to do with her. Diane goes over the case and evidence that got Alexis disbarred and asks why she didn't fight for herself. Alexis says it was true, but Diane calls that irrelevant. She had a right to mount a defense. Alexis guesses at the time she didn't think she had anything to fight for. Diane tells her to shake that feeling off because working here isn't working for her, and they need to get her out of here. Diane recalls Alexis wasn't her best back then and drinking, and she thinks there is a case of bias as the medical profession hates lawyers more than anything, plus she's a female lawyer. Diane makes some calls to find out the next steps, and she must file a few appeals to get to the top courts. Alexis wonders why she threw her career away to save Niels again. Diane says because she's a rescuer and her own biggest enemy. Alexis hopes she isn't that person anymore, and she still roots for the underdog. Diane wants her to root for herself, and she'll start the process rolling. She also suggests Alexis not sleep with doctors, only attorneys. Finally, Diane tells her, get rid of that gossip columnist that came after me. In Kevin's office at the hospital, Marshall doesn't understand why he was misdiagnosed. And did he have to be mentally ill to be feeling the way he was back then? Kevin tells him that he just diagnosed his misdiagnosis. Kevin explains medicine has come a long way from where it began, but made many mistakes on the way. Psychiatry is a younger science and also has fumbled. He says scientists like to be right, and at the time of his diagnosis, they were still struggling with what mental illness was and what normal was. Back then, the control group for normal was white, predominantly educated, and church-going people, and if you were not part of that group and couldn't present in a certain way, then you were looked at as a problem, an illness.